Welcome to another edition of the Australian version of the SprintCarUnlimited.com podcast. I'm Jeremy Elliott, joined by Sheldon Hart, all the way in Australia. Sheldon, it's been a while, I think, since the Dirt Car Nationals that we spoke. How are things going?
Going good, thank you.
Good, good. We're going to jump in. Obviously, we got a quick show today, and we wanted to recap the Australian Championship. I know it's been a couple weeks, but we kind of wanted to take a look at that. And of course, one of your guys, Jock Goodyear, gets the win, I guess, in the Australian Championship. Tell us a little bit about that event.
That's easily one of the biggest events ever seen here in Western Australia for sure. We had a crowd on the Saturday, I think, in excess of 9,500 people, so not bad at all. And the overall pageantry and everything leading up to the event was just spectacular. We had a prelude to the championship meeting on the Wednesday before that, and then we had the preliminary night on the Friday, and then the championship final on the Saturday, and we had skydivers, fireworks, all sorts of things for that. It was a it was a massive spectacle. They definitely made a big event out of it for sure. And
Skydivers?
Skydivers. that's a first for Americans, I'm sure. Yeah, no, this time it goes very rare thing. But yeah, no, I tell you what, that I got to say that was a bit of a surprise pack, even though Jocks had a pretty good season. But when I think back on it, there were some unlucky people as well, like Jamie Veal and the likes of him, and all sorts of people.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on the skydivers. We don't see that in sprint car racing very often, if at all, in the United States. Now, you mentioned a crowd close to. I mean, what was it for 3 days? I believe you said it was close to 20,000.
Yep, correct.
Is that the biggest ever? Do you think?
No, I don't think it's quite the biggest ever, but it's very close to the record. Believe it or not, the Motorplex can actually hold it. I think it's 15,000 people officially, but I don't think you could really fit many more than there that night. It was pretty spectacular, I got to say.
Well, some other guys that we talked about who could win this event, Lachlan McHugh. I guess he ends up second.
Mm-hmm, correct. Yep.
In that event. And you mentioned that it was in our notes that it was one of the best A mains. How close was it? What did you see? What was your perspective?
Well, I think I said to you in the notes that it turned out to be Australia's most expensive demolition derby. The amount of chaos and crashes and all sorts of things like that, the carnage. That I think there was only 11 cars that finished the A main.
Wow.
Out of the 24 that started. So it was a bit of a race of attrition, but it was sort of to the point that the lead never because we had that many stoppages, and Goodyear just his car was a rocket ship. And once he was in clean air, that was it. But I tell you what, capped off a hell of a season for him. He won the Australian Championship, but he also won the South Australia Victoria Speedway. With the likes of Hodenshield and that in the field as well earlier in December and January as well. He's had a hell of a season for him, and I'd say for the majority of people a bit of a surprise.
Well, some guys didn't do very well. You mentioned Brooke Tatnell, Stephen Lines didn't even qualify for the A main.
No, yeah, it was a bit of a shock. They're names that for the last 20 years, you'd think for sure they'd get into the A main, but no, they didn't. It was one of the sort where, especially for Brooke Tatnell, anything that could go did go wrong. And yeah, there was a few notable names that didn't even make it to the A main or even race on the final night because they had issues on the Friday night and damaged their car. Like Dane Kingshot, who races for Creaky Motorsport, he didn't get to even race on the Saturday night because he junked the car on the Friday. And Matthew Dumsney was also in that boat because he was racing for Monty Motorsport, and they sustained too much damage on the Friday night and couldn't continue into the Saturday either. And that was a combination that I thought was a good chance to take out the title as well going into the weekend, but it didn't work out that way.
How about Marcus Dumpsey? I mean, he's a name that we've heard a lot about over here. And what was his weekend like?
Well, he had a few incidences as well. I think he crashed twice or Saturday, uh, and he got the provisional. He got a provisional starting spot for the A main because that's a defending champion's right. That they always get to race in the final no matter what happens. And I think he worked his way to seventh from memory, from starting right at the back of the field in 24th. So he was able to navigate all the carnage and disasters, and yeah, he ended up doing pretty well to get seventh, but I'm sure it wasn't the title defense that he was hoping for.
Now, Ian Madsen was in the hunt for this thing. He was actually running this in the runner-up spot, and I guess the engine let go for Ian. Did he have a shot?
I think he was. I think he was definitely on the pace of Jock at times when they did catch lap traffic, which was very few and far between. You know, he was definitely closing. Then the engine went sour. Quite to be honest.
We mentioned Kerry Madsen as well on our preview. I mean, I picked him to win. Obviously, I probably jinxed him because I have a habit of doing that. What was Kerry's weekend like?
Um, well, I would say that they definitely weren't on the pace on the Friday night. I think actually he may have actually picked up prelim. Don't know. It was a few weeks ago. Bear with me. But I would say he did finish pretty well from memory. I'd have
Well,
to go back and look through the results. But yeah,
for Kerry, though, not winning, it's all about winning for Kerry, especially over there.
absolutely. Um, you know, I think a lot of people thought for sure he was definitely gonna be a shoe-in to maybe win, definitely a favorite. You know, the Cricking Motorsport Kerry Madsen combination has been very, very potent in the past. So it was a bit of a surprise. Definitely in was a concluding stages, but no one was going to catch Jock for any money, I don't think.
So you mentioned about the television, the way
Yeah,
that was handled. I guess it was nationwide free television. Talk about that and what that is over there, because that's something I don't think we're experiencing over here.
so well, this is mainly a Western Australian thing, and this is a sort of thing that even the rest of Australia could definitely pick up on. Um, so the Perth Motorplex, they they're covered their events. They're covered by a TV program that's called Night Thunder. It just mainly covers a lot of the sprint car racing and some of the other divisions of racing at the Perth Motorplex. And a free-to-air channel here, Channel 7, carries it. They show that, I think, maybe a week for me to air. I think it's an hour-long show. They show that. And also, they've got a streaming service, Channel 7 does, and it's called 7 Plus. Pardon me. And what they do is the night after a meeting, they will actually stream the event as filmed. So no cuts or editing or anything like that. It's just as you see the event as live, if you will. And I think for the Australian Championship, for example, and this blew my mind when I read the numbers, but the national audience for the Australian title event for Night Thunder and that program was 500,000 people,
Wow.
which is not bad. When you go, I installation is what, 27 million people? So, 500,000 people, that's a pretty good slice of the pie. It was the second most watched event in Australia for sports behind the Super Bowl.
No, of course.
So what does that tell you? So what does that tell you? That's pretty good though.
So is it free that when the replay and the Night Thunder that's free to the public, correct?
That's free to the public. Yep.
Oh.
And it's brilliant because it's giving the sport the level of exposure that we've been hungry for years. Yeah.
So wanted to hit on a couple other things before we get out of here. Overall, now you still have racing left. You guys go through April and sometimes into June, but your kind of big events, the ones that we kind of follow over here in the States are pretty much in the books now. How would you assess this season? Because it seems to me, talking to some of the guys who came back here, obviously having you on the show, this season was pretty successful over there with big crowds and good racing.
I would say that this is probably one of the best seasons we've ever seen in Australia, hands down. In terms of crowd numbers, I don't think I've ever seen crowd numbers in my 24 years on this earth anywhere close to what we've seen this season. I think the Classic had 10 or 11,000 people. The Australian title, as I said earlier, had 9,500 people in attendance. It's just massive crowds at all the major events. I don't think we could have asked for any more. And we've had some exceptional racing as well.
Why do you think? I mean, and I know this is a tough question because, I mean, obviously you're not in everybody's head. What? Why do you think that is? Why do you think it was bigger this year as opposed to years past?
Well, I would say for events like the speed weeks and stuff, I think a lot of that comes back to that this is the first real season that we've had since COVID. And I think the dirt racing public have just been that hungry for quality major events, and I think, well, even the Australian title, that was the first time that was run in a couple of years because of the oh, actually they ran it at Archfield last year, but still, this is the first full season, normal season that we've had since COVID. I'm sure that's got a big part of it, and I think a lot of people actually um, got into dirt racing as well during the pandemic, because that was actually one of the few sports that kept going for the most part, uh, even with Africans, but we were, especially in Western Australia, and I know that's definitely had an effect as well.
Where's the season go from here? Do you kind of have like just some local racing now, or what's the rest of the season look like?
So yeah, for the majority, I would say that it's just mainly local racing. But I tell you what, some of our local racing, well, that's some of the best you'll ever see anywhere, sure.
When do you now we're going to start seeing guys come over here in your
Correct.
Lachlan McHugh. I'd like to see Jock Goodyear get over here.
Me too.
All these names that we're talking about. I'd like to, I know that's a tough deal. I think you could see James McFadden do something. I can't really say too much of it, but I talked to him a little bit down at the Dirt Car Nationals at Volusia, and he
Yeah.
might have something brewing as to bring guys over here, maybe some team ownership. But when do you expect those guys to come over here? And do the Australian sprint car fans follow those guys every move when they do come over here?
Well, I can only speak for myself since I don't live in everyone's head, but I do, for sure. I definitely follow every Australian driver and what they're doing. things like that, because it's good to see our local guys on the world stage. You know, we, Australians are under no illusion that American sprint car racing is where the pinnacle's at. But yeah, I'm sure that they would be heading over, very shortly. I'm not exactly sure on dates, of course, but we've got Cody Morosky, who won a big event at Toowoomba. He won a 20 grand to win event there a couple of months back. I know as he's going Marcus over as well, Marcus Dumsney. But I could give you a list of 20 guys that I think that should be over there easy. Um, I don't think I think that gap between American talent and Australian talent is closing. I definitely think it's closing.
You mentioned Marcus Dumpsey coming over, Morosky, obviously McHugh. I think promoters over here would like to see him as well because that would boost our car counts.
Yeah, and not only that, I think American fans love us Aussies, if I'm not mistaken. We're definitely our own unique breed, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell it's always funny. The women over here like the Australian because they like the accent. And because I know when James McFadden gets on the mic and people like that, they like his accent, but I think they also like the driving style. I think the laid back kind of attitude, except for maybe Carrie, because Carrie's not exactly necessarily as laid back as some of the others. But I do think that Australian drivers are viewed very favorably over here. I know for me, I like interviewing them, so it's definitely something I hope happens more in the future.
You and me both. Yeah, and if we can get something together so that we can get more Australians over here, whether they're team owners or drivers or crew members or what have you, that's only a good thing. I think that could grow the sport even more globally. So I say more the merrier.
Yeah, and I think globally is where sprint car racing isn't as big. I mean, look, Super Bowl is the most watched thing in your country, and that I think that says a lot to the global reach of the NFL. I think the NBA, we already know how that's viewed globally. Baseball, big in South America and also Asia. It's huge. And now sprint car racing has a lot of, I would say, hurdles to cross. There are a lot of dirt tracks in Europe though, because motocross is big, and that flat track motocross is big. So it could happen, but it's expensive to ship a car overseas. So we'll have to work on that.
Well, I know that they even do like grass oval racing in places like, I think they call it autograss, in places like England and the Netherlands. So the Dutch and people like that. So I think it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to try and expand it over there. I would certainly like to see it. But yeah, we've only got three countries that really mainly partake in sprint car racing, and that's New Zealand, Australia, and the US.
Well, hopefully, maybe we can make it happen, Sheldon. Maybe we can make it happen.
Fingers crossed.
That's going to wrap up this edition of the Sprint Car Unlimited the SprintCarUnlimited.com podcast, Australian style. We still have some computer glitches with our Zoom. I'm about ready to go postal on the people at Zoom. But Sheldon, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, mate. Yep.
And we'll be back with another edition soon. Stay tuned.